Okay, so quick review. General form, A has to be positive, A, B, and C have no meaning, and there's one other like caveat. Hello? Good. So the better word is integers, because a whole number doesn't include negatives, and B and C could be negatives. So I like just saying, because let's be honest, you guys remember what an integer is? I like saying no fractions. Y equals mx plus b. What does m represent? Good. M is our slope, and then b is our y-intercept. Good. And then we have slope point form. M is still our slope. It's nice that they didn't change that on us. Really important. Y1 and Y1, sorry, X1 and Y1 are a point. Is a point? Is a point. Well, it's 1 point though. They form 1 point together. Really important. On slope point form, those are negatives or subtraction signs. Everywhere else, it's a positive sign. That's really annoying and really unfortunate, but you have to just memorize that. So depending on the form might determine like how you start or approach a question. I will sometimes specify that like the form of your answer I would like it in. There's different formats, so you have to memorize them at the end of the day, all three forms. Okay, let's look at first. So these ones for the most part are level 5-6 questions. So this is like where it's going to get more difficult, more things at play, all those kind of fun facts. So given 2 points, determine the equation in general form of a line passing through those 2 points. What's the first thing that we could do here? Go ahead, Khalil. Good, find the slope. When we're finding the slope, remember it's rise over run or y minus y. Put your subtraction signs in first so you don't mess it up, and then write it vertically. So my first point has a -1, and then 3, -6, -2. Right? This is one set of coordinates, my second set of coordinates. -1 minus -6. You don't get a calculator for this test, so let's review integers. -1 minus a -6 is positive, so we're adding. -1 plus 6 gives us, good. -3 minus -2, we're adding again. So we get 5, so my slope is 1. What's the next step I can do? I have a slope and I have 2 points. Go ahead, Khalil. No, because ABC is useless. We can't go directly to general. You can never go directly to general. So now we have to, like, our step 2, and this is where it's tricky, is determine which form to use. So this is like, I'm writing it down, but this is the thought you should have in your head. Okay, which form should I use? You cannot go directly to general. General is useless. So I'm really choosing between slope point and slope intercept. Do I have my y-intercept? No. So we have to use slope point then. We only have our m value and a point. So therefore, we need to use slope point form. So that's the conversation you need to have in your head. By no means do you have to like write out this. You can just go directly there, but I want to write it out just for your notes to help kind of guide you. So y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. You can use either of your points that you're given. Does not matter which one. 100% personal preference. Let's just use point P because it was the first one listed. So this is going to be y minus -1 has a slope of 1, x minus 3. So that's an equation of a line. Now we convert to general. So now solve for 0 to put into general. With this, at the end of the day, I'm doing algebra. You can do algebra in a couple different orders. What's nice with this particular question is this is going to become y plus 1. Do I need to even write down this 1 again for my slope? No. Do I need to write down the brackets? No, because it's 1. At the end of the day, yes, I'm doing distributive property, but because it's 1, I don't really need to do that. So then I get x minus 3. So to put into general, we have to actually have it 0 equals everything else. So I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides and subtract y. My y's cancel, those 1's cancel. So then I have 0 on my left side, x minus y minus 4. If you want to do that in 2 steps, you go right ahead. If you want to do it in 1 step, I think you guys are at the point where you can do it in 1 step too. So then this is your final answer. What is the value of b in this question? This is like aside fun facts. Good. So A would just be 1, B is -1, C would be -4. Because general form, the original form, has addition signs, if there's a negative or a subtraction sign, you include that in your answer. Because sometimes we might ask you to actually identify A, B, and C. Okay, let's look at this. Is that one okay? Does that make sense? Can you guys be impressed by all my color coding there? Looks good. Thanks. I was trying this morning. I had a good night's sleep. Determine the equation in general form again. Annoying. Of a line that passes through a point and is perpendicular to the line with this equation. Questions like this, there are a few ways you can start. I find it easiest to start with slope when you can. Do you have to? No. Like, it's not like a general rule applying for all, but it's kind of a good, like, fail-safe. So how do we find slope from that equation? Go ahead, Khalil. How would I find the value of x and y in that equation? Solve for y. By solving for y, that puts it into the form y equals mx plus b, which then we can easily identify our slope. When in doubt, solve for y. Okay, so if we have 3x minus 5y plus 17 equals 0, I'm going to add 5y to both sides just to make y positive right off the bat. So then I get 3x plus 17 equals 5y. Divide every single thing by that 5. So now I can see I have 3/5 x plus 17 over 5. So the slope of this current line is 3/5. The slope that we want for our new equation is perpendicular to that. So what's the slope of the line that we are like developing? Good. Change our sign, so it's going to become a negative slope and reciprocate. Okay, so now we need to write our equation. In this situation, we now have slope and a point. That point happens to be an x-intercept, which like isn't overly helpful, but it happens to be that. Which form do we want to put it into if we have slope and a point? Good. So we're going to put it into our slope point form. Do you have to write down your general equation? No. If you want to go directly into subbing it in, that's just fine by me. So on this one, my y value is 0. Slope is -5/3. And then I get x minus 5. Am I done? No. So now we need to convert to general. If I just told you to write this equation down and I didn't give you a restriction, you could be fine to leave it here. They didn't, or the workbook didn't. So let's, y minus 0, I could just call this y. Then I have to do distributive property. So I'm going to multiply in my -5/3. So I'm going to get -5/3x. Negative times a negative gives us a positive. So I'm going to get positive 25/3. Remember, you can think of that 5 as like 5/1. I'm going to subtract y from both sides, so that way this side, my left side, equals 0. Okay, so at this point, I have two like no-nos. My a, or the coefficient with the x, is a negative, and I have fractions. So I'm going to multiply everything by -3. By doing that, my first term, or like the coefficient on my x, my 3's are going to cancel, my negatives are going to cancel, leaving me with 5. On my y, the negatives cancel, but the 3 gets to tag along. And then on the last term, my 3's cancel, but it pushes it to be a negative. If you get one of your signs wrong, are you wrong? Yes. A lot of work for one question. You guys see why that's level 5-6? Right? Like that's a lot there. You have to know a lot of different pieces of information to actually do that. Okay, one more, and then you guys can have the rest of the class to do some work. Find the equation of the find the equation in general form again of a line perpendicular to this one with the same x-intercept as this one. Trickier yet, x-intercept means what? What do we know about all x-intercepts? Y = 0. Good habit to write that in. Step 1, let's figure out our slope. So perpendicular to the first line that was given. So let's put into y = mx plus b, or solve for y. So we have 5x minus 7y minus 10 = 0. So I'm going to add 7y's to both sides. And then I'm going to divide everything by 7. Some of you might be getting to the point where you could do those steps in your head. I would be very careful. Some of you are really good at it, and that's like just fine by me. Write down though your initial slope and then your perpendicular slope. So at least I can do those 2 checks. Be really careful. It's easy if you're doing it in your head to miss negatives though. So this then becomes 5/7x minus 10/7. So our current slope is 5/7. Our perpendicular slope is -7/5. So another, like, I know I'm giving you guys lots of like suggestions to help you. Generally speaking, in math and in the question, each like part of the question or each sentence or like before the word and after the word and is two pieces of information. We've kind of dealt with the first piece of information. Now we need to deal with the second piece of information. We need to find a point here. That's what we need to do using this, because we need to find out what that x-intercept is at. And we have an equation. How can we do that using this equation of x minus 2y minus 12 equals 0? How can I use the information of x-intercept there? Drew. Good, right on. Solve for x instead of y. Even more specifically, I know y has to be equal to 0. So if I plug 0 in for y, I now have one variable. And I can find what our x value is. So I can find our coordinates of that point of our x-intercept. 2 times 0 is 0, so I get x minus 12 equals 0. So that means we have a point at 12 and 0. So now we have slope and a point. What equation are we going to use? Good. If my point happened to be my y-intercept, you could use slope-intercept form. So I'm going to have y minus 0 equals negative 7/5 x minus 12. Y minus 0 I can just rewrite as y. I want to just show you guys another way to approach these compared to like how I did it last time, just so you guys can see something different. If at this point I could times everything by -5 right now, that makes distributive property a little bit easier. If I times both sides by a -5, I get -5y on my left side. On my right side, the 5's cancel out and then my negatives cancel out. So then I just have 7x minus 12. So I've already kind of gotten rid of my fractions by doing it that way. So you could do it now or you could do it later. It's totally your personal preference. Personally, I almost always do distributive property first. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the easiest or right way though. It's just like my habits. So now I would multiply that 7 in. So I'm going to get minus 5y equals 7x minus 84 and add 5y to both sides. So then I get 0 equals 7x plus 5y minus 84. Just different ways to do algebra. I just want to make sure you guys are aware of them so you have those resources. It's really question dependent, I find, which way is a little bit easier. That's it. After this, lesson 6 and 7, which what we're doing this week, are pretty straightforward lessons. No like new content really this week. It might just be like presented in a way you haven't seen before. So these are your practice questions. I didn't give you a ton of class time for lesson 3, so you might need to go back to lesson 3 and do those practice questions first on general form. That will make these ones a little bit easier. But you do have 40 minutes right now to be doing practice questions. These questions will take you more time though.